And the very first thing that we look at in regards to fulfilling your mission is this aspect that says, make the critical decision. Make the critical decision, and that is to decide to allow God to have full ownership of who you are and what you are about. Just say, God, you have full ownership of me. It's like the sign down the street I saw said, God wants full custody. God wants full custody, not just weekend visits. You know, we got to come to a place where we recognize that God wants full ownership, and we give him full ownership of who we are and what we're all about. You know, we like to say that Jesus is Lord of our life. That is until he asks us to do something outside of the little box that we like to live in, outside of that spectrum that we like in, otherwise known as our comfort zone. You know, when God begins to ask us to live outside of our little box or outside of our comfort zone, then all of a sudden we begin to panic. You know, like when God says, I want you to give sacrificially regarding something, or I want you to go off and I want you to teach this particular class, or I want you to intercept that particular individual, I want you to share your faith with that person, I want you to step out of this kind of comfort zone and do something else. That's then when we kind of begin to think, well, you know, I'm not so sure, God, about all those things, and we begin to make our excuses. And it's at that point that our excuses really become, you know, it shows us something about ourselves. And what it shows us is that we really don't have God as Lord of our lives. It's at that point that when we're full of excuses as to why that particular action doesn't fit for us, then when we say, well, God, I'm already pressed to the limits. I've already got a lot on my plate. You know, if I give to that particular need, it's going to make my finances short. You know, God, I'm not gifted in that area. God, I don't know how to start. I don't want to upset my schedule, whatever it may be. It's really saying, Lord, Jesus, you are really not the Lord of my life, because I'm going to be Lord in this situation. It's taking God off the throne of your life and then you determining what's best for you. And I want you to know that you will never fulfill God's mission for your life until you make the critical decision to simply do so. When you stand back and say, God, it's all about you. I want you operating in my life, and what you say, I will do. Somewhere in the course of this widow's day, she had to make the decision to drop what she was doing and to adopt a new plan. In fact, God's plan. It was clear to her that she and her son were going to eat their last meal, and then it was whatever fate would have. She says that, I'm going to prepare this little bit that I have, I'm going to make a meal for my son, and then we will die. So she's thinking she's going to gather these last few sticks, she's going to build a fire, she's going to cook this last meal, and then whatever would be, would be. But as much as that is going on in her head, that was not God's plan for her. So when Elijah stood before her, she had a decision to make. Could she step out of herself and her own plan to embrace the unknown possibilities before her? That's what it is. Could she step out of what she had already planned and say, God has something different for me? You see, she didn't know that God was behind all of this. All she's doing is hearing this prophet stand before her with a promise, and she's having to respond to that. All she sees is a man who stands before her asking her to give up her last meal on the promise that God was going to keep her flour bowl from running out and keep her jug of oil from going dry. And somewhere in the processing of those thoughts, she had to make the critical decision to trust God for things beyond her capabilities and beyond her sight. She had to stop and simply say, I'm not going to control my life. I'm going to let God take control. I'm going to let God be God. And there are times in our lives when we got to come to a place where we simply say, I'm going to let Jesus be Lord. I'm not going to try to control this. I'm not going to try to manipulate this. I'm not going to try to somehow have it my way. Jesus is going to be Lord in my life. And it was that decision for this lady, the decision she made that day, that was a live or die decision in her life. She said it. She said, we're going to live. She said, I'm going to eat this, and then we're going to die. But what God did through Elijah was place before her a live or die situation. And I love these terms, this live or die phrase, because what she decided when she decided to meet Elijah's request and make that small cake of bread, she was saying, I will live and not die. I will live and not die. And I thought that is such an awesome, awesome statement, because all of us come to a place where we face defining moments in our lives, and they are literally live or die moments. You know, when we make the choice to fulfill God's mission in our lives, we are saying we will live and not die. And I want you to understand something. It will not be easy. When you come to that crossroads in your life, when you're wanting to give up, when everything seems to be breaking out against you, it will not be easy. I mean, you'll face every demonic spirit that's imaginable. You'll come against every demon you can even think of. And you may be in for the fight of your life when that thing comes. But you need to stand firm, believe in God, and know that God's purpose is to make your life count for that which impacts His kingdom. And it's your I will live and not die declaration. I was mentioning it in first service. I'll mention it here as well. How many remember when we were in the school and it was set up and tear down for all those years? And it was one of those situations where there were just days when maybe it was an off Sunday, maybe attendance was really low, or maybe things just happened. It was just one of those days when you think, man, I could pack this stuff up for the very last time and never come back here. How many can honestly remember those days? I can remember the day then the fire alarm went off and blasted our ears so much we thought we weren't going to have eardrums when it was all said and done. And finally I had to just leave early. And, it's like one of those times when I can remember showing up and the gate was locked and there was the frustration of trying to find out who was meant to open and it's like, I'm just so done with this. But I've come to realize that in every church plant, you got to come to a place where you make one of these I will live and not die declarations. And I believe that was true for our church as well. There were times, I'll be honest, there were times when I just wanted to give up, pack up, and felt like there had to be an easier place. But it was this I will live and not die declaration that kept us firm. And I think all of us come to that situation when the enemy comes in like a flood, and the battle is raging, and the war is on, and it seems like you're going to go under, except that you stand up and you finally say, I will live and not die. I will live and not die. I'm going to live and not die. And you stand in the face of the enemy and you prevail because God is coming to your rescue and He's on your side. We all face those times. And we've got to make that statement, I will live and not die. And by it, you will see God's purpose come alive in your life. Resolve to make the decision. I'm going to serve God. He's going to own me. I'm going to live and not die.